Good evening friends, this is Bhushan. I welcome you all to another edition of Daily News Analysis. In today's analysis, we are going to discuss some very important articles that were featured in the Hindu and Indian Express newspapers majorly. Along with it, we are also going to cover some other important news from other important sources as well. So particularly in the explain section, the most important news covered by almost all the newspapers is about Ahmedabad Air India plane crash. See, this particular news important particularly from the perspective of aviation, civil aviation, which is major part of GS3, GS2 to certain extent. At the same time, from the perspective of prelims, some important terms like Mayday, black box, how it works, why particular, at the time of landing as well as takeoff, majority of these incidences happens. That analysis is very, very vital from the perspective of prelims particularly. From the perspective of mains, disaster management is another aspect of this particular article. So stay tuned for deeper analysis of this particular issue at hand. The second most important article that we are going to discuss is about Moody's downgrade and US fiscal policy. See, this particular article was part of text context page of the Hindu today. I know that this particular Moody's downgrade was a bit old, but the analysis part is important. Some good learnings India can take from that particular downgrade, and how the world markets are reacting to it is another important issue at hand here. The third important article that we are going to discuss is about relative drop in gender parity in India. That is the analysis of recent global gender gap report of World Economic Forum. So we are going to discuss briefly what exactly is this rating, or rather report, and how India has fared over the years. What is the performance of South Asian countries is also important area in this regard. What exactly is the gender parity is another important area for GS1 society mains, particularly that is important now for civil services mains exam of 2025. So stay tuned. Another important article that we are going to discuss is science behind right AC temperature. See, most of the time, you must have seen, you must have got the DDMA related heat advisories in Delhi recently. The most important part here to understand is the temperature of AC. What is the right temperature of AC? Most of the time, this is the most often debated issue. So stay tuned how we are going to, how we have actually decided on the right temperature for AC. Along with it, how India is going to tackle the rising heat in its cities. So India cooling action plan, which was, was in news few years back, is another important area. The important targets which are featured in that particular plan is very, very vital. You have already got the question on that particular area in the mains as well as prelims. Particularly in the decoded section, we are going to discuss urbanization and the challenge of ideal transit solutions. Very important article, particularly from the perspective of GS3 and GS1 to certain extent as well. So stay tuned. So the first important article, very tragic news, is about Air India plane crash in Ahmedabad. See, essentially the plane which was heading towards London was crashed after the takeoff from the Ahmedabad airport. So essentially just, in 30 seconds that plane was crashed in the Ahmedabad BJ Medical College in particular. So we are going to see why this particular incident happened. Essentially, what are the probable causes, because we have yet to recover the black box in that particular regard. So we don't know the exact causes, but we are going to see some probable causes behind this tragedy. Along with it, how India is going to conduct the investigation is another important part here. So apart from that, very important terms like black box, Mayday. What exactly is Mayday? Okay, these are some important areas to cover in this particular article. So let's dive into it. So as I said, very fatal crash. Almost all the crew members, and along with 230 passengers, and also the people on the ground also died in this particular tragedy. Only one person survived. That is one person who is named Vishwas Kumar Ramesh. So it is just a God grace, I will say. It is just pure luck that he survived, because according to the current estimates, all other passengers on board that particular plane died in the tragic crash that we have seen. Along with it, that plane actually crashed in the doctor's hostel, BJ Medical College in Ahmedabad in particular. So essentially, the students which are MBBS students, essentially those who are having dinner at that point of time in their mess area also died in this horrific tragedy particularly. So we have seen the casualties on ground in that regard as well. So essentially, there are 24 fatalities on the ground as of now. So essentially, pilot gave a mayday call. Mayday call is essentially distress call was made. No further communication occurred with air traffic control after that, because it all happened in just 30 to 50 seconds. Aircraft was carrying around 1.25 lakh liters of fuel. So essentially, that is the reason. Even our home minister actually commented just yesterday that the heat was so much more, so tremendous, that there are hardly any survivors. Only one survived. It is a miracle, really a miracle, that that person is survived. But again, the plane was carrying almost 1.25 lakh liters of fuel, and that's what caused, after the crash, that's what caused that huge explosion of fire. And so essentially, the response and investigations essentially was very swift. Search was ongoing for black box. DNA identification is is also underway for deceased passengers. So these are some aspects of disaster management here. So from the perspective of administration, that particular aspect is very, very vital. So the investigation is ongoing. Currently, we have data awaited of flight data recorder as well as cockpit voice recorder. So essentially, these are all parts of black box. So we have yet to recover the black box. We are going to see what exactly is this black box. Although it doesn't look black, it is essentially an orange in color. So, but the convention is that it is called a black box. It will give very vital information regarding the flight data of and cockpit voice recorder to certain extent. But what are some possible causes of this particular crash? See, overloading is one cause. We exactly don't know why this particular incident happened recently, but overloading is considered one of the cause. Aircraft may have exceeded its maximum takeoff weight of 2.2 to 7.9 tons. Okay, there is dual engine failure can be another reason. Boeing 787, which is the aircraft in question, can fly up to 330 minutes on a single engine. Okay, but simultaneous failure of both engines is extremely rare, 1 in a billion probability, according to Akshay Pashilkar, CSIR NL. So this is the expert who is saying that this probability is very, very low particularly. So we have yet to see what is the reason behind this particular tragedy. There is another reason of high ambient temperature, hot air, less dense air, reduced lift at same speed. So essentially, high ambient temperature is another reason for that. Lift affected by weight, temperature and altitude. So you must have seen the footage of the plane crash. So the plane actually went not to that great altitude, but then it crashed to certain extent. It may have been affected by weight, temperature as well as altitude issues. Pilots rely on pre-flight charts to determine required takeoff speed for given conditions. So essentially, another important area to understand here is a bird hit. So it is observed that there is a lot of grass which is growing around that airport perimeter. So which may attract insects, and in turn that may attract birds. So essentially, bird hit is considered another reason. So bird ingestion into engines can be another reason. Landing gear reportedly did not retract, which might have limited climb altitude. So you must have seen, the landing gear was not retracted when it crashed. So obviously, all these reasons are at the same time speculative now, until and unless we get the definitive black box recordings. So, but the bird hit is considered one of the possibilities here. The past safety concerns with Boeing 787. See, although that aircraft in question has some safety concerns in the past, there are initial versions faced battery overheating issues. There is, causing grounding of fleet in particular earlier. Boeing had to pause deliveries and redesign fuselage components after that. Investigation bodies involved in the Air India flight crash. Now, who are the investigation agencies which are involved? So this is really important point here from the perspective of prelims. There is Director General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, which is essentially Indian Aviation Regulatory Authority, that is involved currently. It is investigating this particular crash. There is Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, AAIB of India, lead agency for investigating the crash following ICAO protocols. So these are major bodies of who are involved in the investigation currently. See, this AAIB and DGCA, the mandates of them, both these bodies, when they are established, what are some controversies regarding these bodies is another important area, particularly from the perspective of prelims. So, government has also formed a high level committee to investigate, to be constituted by Indian government, comprising experts from various disciplines for in-depth examinations and safety review. Particularly, there is National Transport Safety Board of USA, which is also involved currently. The team is heading towards India at the same time. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA of USA is also there. Essentially, FAA is a US aviation regulator. It is also coordinating with NTSB regarding the investigation. There is investigation by International Civil Aviation Organization as well, ICAO. So you must know the background of ICAO at the same time. This particular body is also very important. You will get the question on this particular body, its history regarding that. Particularly, you can get the question in mains as well as prelims. There is, as UK is also involved in the investigation, they are also sending the specific team for the investigation purposes. So, considering the background of this particular tragedy, we are going to see many more, updates regarding this particular tragedy. But before that, now what we are going to discuss is the terms which are exactly in news. So, first is black box. So, black box is a flight recorder used to reconstruct events leading to a plane crash. So, you can see the picture of black box, which doesn't look black, but it is orange in color. This is really, really important point to understand. There are two types of black boxes. There is cockpit voice recorder, which records the cockpit conversations, radio transmissions and engine sounds. And then there is a flight data recorder. So, these are the two components involved in the black box, in that particular orange blacks that you have seen. It records 80 plus parameters. So, from altitude, airspeed, pitch, roll, vertical acceleration, autopilot status, etc. all is recorded in that flight data recorder. So, both these are part of black box. Housed in a durable material like steel or titanium. This is particularly important fact here. So, it is housed in that particular durable material which can survive the crash. So, that essentially we can get that particular data and we will get to know why the plane was crashed at the same time, with the insulation for protection from extreme conditions like heat as well as impact. Typically located in the tail section of aircraft. So, this particular fact here is very important. Where exactly is this black box located? It is located in the tail section of the aircraft, which is least affected during crashes. Essentially, you must have seen the tail part which was lodged in that particular building. You must have seen the imagery there. So, you can see in the tail section the black box was placed particularly of the aircraft. What exactly is the use during crashes? It is crucial in the post-crash investigation. So, post-facto analysis, very important. We get to know the cause. Over water crashes, black boxes emit ultrasound signals for 30 days. So, this is another important area. Suppose the plane crashed in the water, suppose in the ocean or seas, then the black box emits ultrasound signals for almost 30 days as well. So, that the locating the black box becomes easier, and that is why we will have the right investigations in time. Signal emission does not guarantee recovery. Okay, so many times signal emission does not guarantee recovery because obviously there are a lot of other noises which may come from that particular area as well. So, locating it in a particular point will be very difficult at the same time. But what is the origin and history of this particular black box? So, it is invented by Dr. David Warren in 1953, Australia, inspired by miniature voice recorders seen at a trade fair. Australia became the first country to mandate black boxes in 1963. So, this particular history is really, really important, particularly from the perspective of prelims. Australia was the first country which mandated black box use in its planes way back in 1963. Now mandatory on all commercial aircrafts worldwide. So, essentially this is the case now. On all commercial aircrafts, black box is mandatory now. So, why the name is black box? Not actually black, as I said, it looks orange. It is painted orange for visibility obviously. Term originates from early data recording devices using photographic film housed in a black containers to block light. So, essentially earlier what used to happen, it is actually the data recording devices are actually wrapped in the photographic film, so that they can and they are housed in black containers so that they can block the light. So, essentially the inside the data recording devices are safe from the heat, light at the same time. So, that is why from that time it was called a black box, but over the period of time for the visibility purposes we changed it to orange. Aircraft black boxes never used film, began with metal strips, then magnetic drives, now used solid state memory chips. So, now they are not using photographic films, they use solid state memory chips. So, black boxes contains solid state memory chips now. So, that is why there is no use of using the black boxed color. So, essentially although the nomenclature continued. So, what exactly is the Mayday now? So, it is an internationally recognized distress signal used in a voice radio communications to indicate a life threatening emergency. So, essentially when someone calls Mayday, 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 what does it mean? It essentially means it is a distress signal that that used in the voice radio communications. So, essentially it conveys the distress. So, as we have seen, the pilot in this particular plane crash did give the Mayday signal, but air traffic control does not receive another response to that particular Mayday call. But again, because it all happened very fast, very early. But another important area to understand here is why most aviation accidents occur during takeoff and landing. So, this particular data here is extracted from various various fatal accidents of flights between 2015 and 2024. So, from that particular data that we can observe that most aviation accidents did occur during takeoff and landing. So, this is something this is the data, not that much important, but what is the reason behind with this high risk during takeoff and landing? This particular slide here is very important. Aircraft fly low and slow, leaving less time to react to malfunctions. So, obviously aircraft when it just takes off or just lands, essentially the speed slows down, the altitude height is reduced, and it gives it less time to maneuver to the malfunctions. So, that is why that is one reason. During takeoff, engine under a maximum stress, higher chance of stalling and losing lift, limited altitude leaves little room for error correction. As I said, always during takeoff, these are the issues. There is a maximum stress and there is a very little room for error correction. During landing, most technically demanding phase requiring continuous adjustments, wind, speed, weight, etc. At the same time, it tests, there are many pilot errors while landing as well. So, you need experienced pilot to land the aircraft safely at the same time. There is low altitude challenge. So, many times you must have seen, actually due to bird strikes, turbulence or bad weather also, that the flights refuse to land, particularly on that particular station. So, that can be the another reason, low altitude challenges. So, these are some reasons behind the high risk during takeoff and landing disasters, particularly aviation safety improvements. But what is the record when it comes to aviation disasters? Air travel is the safest mode of transport today. Although it generates so much news, at the same time it is one of the safest travels. ICAO data shows accidents per million departures dropped from 4.9 in 2005 to currently 1.9 in 2023. So, you can see per million what are the accidents, 1.9 currently. So, it is very less. So, the probability of somebody having the accidents with airplane is very less. Fatalities also declined correspondingly. Reasons for improved safety. What are the reasons? But aircrafts are now more robust, pilots are better trained, and safety protocols are most refined and effective at the same time. So, we have seen the improvement. At the same time, the air travel is one of the safest mode of travel, okay, despite the tragedy in question. So, this is the practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very important, at the same time very tragic news. We are going to see many more developments in that particular regard going forward. The second most important article that is important particularly from the perspective of means. At the same time, you must know what are credit rating agencies in India, who regulates these agencies. These aspects are already asked in prelims. Okay, so what has happened is Moody's did downgrade US economy's rating way back in 2016. Okay, so essentially that is the news at that point of time. Despite that, the market reaction was muted. So we are going to discuss why it is muted and how India can learn from this particular episode in question. But before that, what exactly is the credit rating? Credit rating is an assessment by credit rating agency indicating the likelihood of timely repayment of debt and the risk of default on interest or principal. So essentially, what exactly is the credit rating means is it indicates a timely whether that particular country or that particular economy is going to repay its debt in a timely manner or not, or there is a risk of default on interest or capital. So it generally indicates the trust in that particular economy as well. Silent shift in the global finance. So we have in recent times we have seen the silent shifts. What are the observations in this regard? Despite the Moody's downgrade of US credit rating, which happened way back in May 16, global markets showed no panic. See, if the situation was like that, suppose the same thing would have happened just 4 decades back, there could have been a massive panic, but that didn't happen. Why it didn't happen? It marks a symbolic erosion of US fiscal supremacy. It shows the symbolic erosion of US fiscal supremacy. The downgrade signals accumulated pressure rather than a sudden shock. See, US in particular has tremendous amount of debt. Almost 120% of its GDP is debt. Is its debt. So you can see it is the national debt is crossing almost $33 trillion according to the recent estimates. So the rating downgrade, according to the article, is decades in the making. We have seen the fiscal dominance was built on the global trust in its institutions and financial discipline. So at the same time, in the recent, in the recent last 5 to 6 months, there is a Trump presidency. Many times the Trump's policies are creating this global uncertainties at the same time. So that can be one of the reasons behind the downgrade at the same as well. But it is the most immediate sort of reason. But this crisis was, decades in the making. That's what the article argues. So, as I said, the national rate has crossed almost 120% of GDP. Post 2008, emergency spending became routine, leading to chronic reliance on deficit financing. There is always the deficit financing. So, essentially, US government in particular is, overspending in that regard. Post 2008 emergency, political polarization has made budget management fragile. You must have seen in recent times. There is one big beautiful bill and Trump versus Musk saga in that regard. So, you can see the, pulls and pressures of budgeting in the US particularly. So, political polarization is another reason, because most of the time the budgets are ballooning, because they are the constituents in US House or US Senate are promising so many things to their constituents which are not paid for. So, essentially it is going into the debt of US. So, there are global calibrations at the same time. The downgrade comes amid the shift in global finance alliances. Central banks are reducing US treasury exposure, hedging with gold and exploring alternative currencies. The dollar centrality is being questioned. Although the dollar is still central, but obviously the markets are hedging otherwise to certain extent. So, essentially there is the diversification ongoing away from US dollar. Lessons for India. What are some lessons from this particular episode? India's debt is nearing 80% of GDP. So, India's debt is also increasing, although it is stabilizing to certain extent, 80% of GDP currently according to IMF estimates, leaving limited buffers. Rising US yields can trigger capital outflows. So, essentially you can see the yields are also rising in the US. That will create the flight of capital from Indian markets. The 2013 taper tantrum is cited as a precedent for such vulnerabilities. So, we have seen the 2013 taper tantrum. So, just comment what exactly is this taper tantrum. At the same time, can you tell me what exactly is the yield and how it is related to the bond, how it is related to the rate. So, you must have seen the relationship between that particularly. India's fiscal populism problem. So many times, India, before the elections, many political parties declare these freebies. So essentially that will create the fiscal burden on the government as well at the same time. Global debt watch. What is the global debt watch? Other economies like Brazil, South Africa, Germany, Canada face greater scrutiny of debt levels. The global trend suggests the credibility must now be actively earned, not taken for granted. So essentially we have seen the shift. So there is call for fiscal discipline now. For India, this is a time for strategic reflection, not panic. There should be clear long-term economic planning. At the same time, must shift towards infrastructure, skill development and institutional resilience over short-term political gains. So that is the major learning that we can take from India. So this particular, things here you can cite in your GS3 answers. So in conclusion, we can see preemptive action is needed. Loss of fiscal credibility is often quite but costly. India must act before market forces impose discipline. Emphasis on responsible future-oriented fiscal governance is now crucial. So these are some learnings for India. So this particular article until this point is important from the perspective of means, okay, GS3. You can note down some points from here and you can directly use those points in your answers when it comes to the fiscal discipline, fiscal governance in that regard, fiscal policy, monetary versus fiscal policy at the same time. From the perspective of prelims now, what exactly are the credit ratings in India? So as per SEBI's CRA regulations of 1999, CRA is a company engaged in a rating securities listed or proposed to be listed on SEBI recognized stock exchanges. So who regulates credit ratings in India? Who is the regulating agency? Is SEBI under CRA Regulation Act of 1999. So currently there are 7 CRAs that are registered with SEBI. So these organizations are important. You must remember these names. There is a CRISIL, there is CARE Rating, there is ICRA, there is Acquit Ratings and Research, there is Brickwork Ratings, there is India Ratings and Research, IND-RA, there is Infomerics Valuation and Ratings. So these are the 7 recognized registered rating agencies in India. Just remember these names, very important from the perspective of prelims. So these are the international ratings. There are 3 main bodies of international stature here. There is Moody's, there is Standard and Poor's, and there is Fitch. So you can see in this particular chart here various ratings these organizations gives. Moody's particularly gives so many ratings, but you can see S&P as well as Fitch ratings give very similar sort of ratings. So I am not going to discuss what exactly is this AAA means. Go through them briefly what exactly that means. This is the practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very important from the perspective of prelims. So the third important article that we are going to discuss is about global gender gap report. See, India has marked a relative drop in gender parity. So essentially what has happened now, this particular report has come out. It is actually released by World Economic Forum. So from the perspective of prelims, you must know what is the India's rank, who releases gender gap report. At the same time, what are some other agencies or what are some other reports released by WEF. Very important, particularly from the perspective of prelims. But I can see gender related question, particularly in GS1 society part in this year's mains at the same time. You must remember the data, you must know the data so that you can support your arguments in your answers in society part. So what are some insights from World Economic Forum's gender gap report of 2025? India's performance. So let's see how India has performed. India has ranked 131 out of 148 countries with a gender parity score of 64.1%. India dropped from 129th position in 2024. So it is a just relative 2-place drop for India, which was at that point of time, it was out of 146 countries. India remains among the lowest ranked in South Asia. India showed an absolute improvement of 0.3 points in overall performance. At the same time, sub-index wise India's performance. So what are the sub-indexes under this this particular global gender gap report? There is a labor force participation rate 1, there is educational attainment 2nd, there is health and survival 3rd, and political empowerment. These are some 4 sub-indices under that particular report. So on each of these reports, the India's performance varies. So on a labor force participation rate, India remains stagnant at 45.9%. On educational attainment scored 97.1% due to better female literacy and higher tertiary enrollment. At the same time, what about health and survival? Improved due to better sex ratio at birth and healthy life expectancy. Political empowerment declined for the second consecutive years. So, this is the major reason here. So, political empowerment is where India has to work. Women in parliament dropped from 14.7% to 13.8% currently. Women in ministerial roles declined from 6.5% to 5.6%. Score fell further from the peak of 30% in 2019 to 5.9% now. You can see the majority of decline in this particular index happened because of the political empowerment and decline regarding that report. So, what are the global trends? Global gender parity closed at close to 68.8%. The strongest progress is COVID-19 pandemic. At the current rate, full parity is 123 years away. You can see when women can have the gender parity with men in another 123 years. So, it is so far away. So, because we have just achieved 68.8%, around 70% of that particular target, but when we can have the 100% of that parity in another 123 years. So, this is really tragic news. Iceland leads for the 16 consecutive years. Who leads this particular global gender gap report is Iceland. So, most of the times you can see these particular reports are actually led by these Nordic countries. Okay. So, because obviously many times their social structure, their sort of systems in place promotes gender equality, gender parity. It is followed by Finland, Norway, UK, New Zealand. Okay. So, they round up the top 5. Women from 41.2% of global workforce, but only 28.8% hold top leadership roles. So, this sort of data you must know. Women form 41.2% of global workforce, but only around 29% in top leadership roles. This particular news is important. You can cite it many times in your answers when it comes to gender issues. What about the South Asia? South Asian regions review is also important. South Asia ranks 7th globally with regional parity score of 64.6%. Only Bangladesh, which is ranked 24th. I don't know what sort of thing Bangladesh is doing, because many times see there are some certain biases in these ratings at the same time. So, we have to take these particular ratings with a pinch of salt. So, essentially it is surprised that Bangladesh was ranked 24th. Obviously, it was maybe the ratings indicate the situation before the current turmoil which is happening in Bangladesh. So, that can be possible. That is the only country in top 50. So, you can see Bangladesh is ranked 24th, India is ranked 131, Pakistan is ranked 148. There is no surprise in that regard. Recently, we have seen the honor killings and many cases of female homicide at the same time in Pakistan emerging. So, that is the case. So, these are sub-index wise South Asian performance, not that much important from the perspective of prelims. So, just go through that particular side briefly. So, what are some other reports released by WEF now? Global Competitiveness Report, Global Gender Gap Report, as we have seen, Energy Transition Index, Global Risk Report, Global Travel and Tourism Report. So, these are the 5 major reports released by World Economic Forum. Okay, very important. You must know which report is released by which particular organization. That is often the favorite question of UPSC, and many state PCS often ask these type of questions. So, this is the question for you. It is the PYQ which was asked way back in 2017. Comment your answer in the comment section. So, the next important article that we are going to discuss is about the science behind right AC temperatures. So, many times you must have seen the right temperature for male, but again the development in that regard, majorly the technological development of AC, when we look at the overall history, the temperature which was optimally set is taken into account. That particular optimal temperature is according to the male body. So, many times you can see if there is most of the time reacts more more actively to the lower temperatures. So, many times you must have seen there is temperature wars, AC temperature wars in your home as well. So, what is the right AC temperature by the way, considering the heat waves we are currently experiencing? What are some temperature wise at which temperature we must keep our AC? So currently what is happening is, this particular article by the way is important particularly from the perspective of GS3, India Cooling Action Plan. As I said already, UPSC has asked question on that particular plan way back in 2019. Important from the perspective of mains. At the same time, from the perspective of prelims, you must know how AC works. Okay, so let's dive into it. So about the news, what exactly is the news now? The Union Ministry of Power is considering limiting the operational temperature range of new air conditioners in India to 20 degrees Celsius to 28 degrees Celsius. So what will happen now, if it comes into force, you cannot reduce the temperature below 20 degrees Celsius on your AC. So they are trying to increase the range of AC now from 20 degrees Celsius to 28 degrees Celsius. That is considered often the optimum temperature level. We are either way, we are not living in some Nordic countries. So essentially, our bodies can adjust to this particular range of temperature at the same time. This would apply to households, hotels and cars. See, many times more, more temperature you reduce, the more energy is consumed in the process. So in a way, it will also create more, it will create more energy bill for you as well at the same time. So considering, let's see what is the global context and demand in this regard. In 2018, particularly the International Energy Agency IEA estimated there were 2 billion ACs in use around the world. You can see around the world in 2018 there were 2 billion ACs around the world, and that the number of residential units tripled from 2000 to 2022 to 1.5 billion. What it indicates is rapid urbanization, rapid growth, particularly in the developing countries, at the same time rising temperatures as well. So there is a demand for ACs due to that factor as well, and that shown in the data. IEA also said that as of 2022, 43% of people in the Asia Pacific region still in need of additional cooling. There is growing demand for additional cooling. That's why we have come up with India Cooling Action Plan. Considering our own net zero goal, the energy demand is tremendous. You must have seen in recent times, due to the heat wave in Delhi, the energy demand is also peaking. So, most of the time, if we want to conserve the energy, we have to look at this optimum temperature range for ACs as well. What are some past initiatives in this regard? By the way, 2018 to 2021 discussions were held with manufacturers to label ACs with optimal temperature setting for energy efficiency and health. Set a default temperature at 24 degrees Celsius. This is another recommendation, by the way. It is recommended by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So set your AC at 24 degrees Celsius. Okay, do not go below it. So set it so that at 24 degrees Celsius, AC runs optimally. Okay, and at the same time, once it is stabilized, your body also react favorably to that particular optimum temperature as well. So BEE particularly recommended to set AC's default temperature at 24 degrees Celsius. Plans were to implement this after 4 to 6 months awareness campaign and public consultation. But again, it was never implemented at that point of time. But it could have, if it could have been implemented, that could have been a good step at the same time. Because many times we have seen, even, one of my friend runs AC on 18 degrees Celsius. That may not be optimal for, overall energy bill. At the same time, energy efficiency suffers in that regard. Why do we need to regulate the AC temperature, by the way? Energy efficiency impact, one of the foremost reason is, energy efficiency. Each 1 degree Celsius increase in AC temperature saves 6% of electricity consumption. Can you imagine the amount of, energy we will save when you actually change the AC temperature from 18 degrees Celsius to 24? So almost, each degree Celsius of increase will save 6% more energy. Okay, and essentially bill in that regard. Setting ACs to 24 degrees Celsius could save 20 billion units of electricity annually. That is the data according to BEE. Efficient use of ACs is essential to reduce peak load stress at the same time. Okay, so ACs will account for 200 gigawatt of power demand by 2030. This is another important statistic for you. 200 gigawatt of power demand will be there by 2030 for ACs. So can you imagine? So just 1 degree Celsius increase, 6% power saved in that regard. So set your temperature at 24 degrees Celsius. Health considerations. Temperatures below 18 degrees Celsius are considered unhealthy. So do not let your AC temperatures below 18 degrees Celsius lead to vasoconstriction, increased blood pressure by 6 to 8 mmHg. Prolonged exposure may cause hypertension. So, can you see the temperature, the health impact of having the AC temperature below 18 degrees Celsius? It can have many asthma related issues at the same time. So, there are health considerations at the same time. Cold homes are also linked to increased use of antibiotics, high risk of depression, anxiety, lower lung infection, lower lung functions at the same time. The optimal comfort zone is around 20 to 24 degrees Celsius, where the body dissipates heat effectively with sweating or shivering. People breathe more easily when they sleep with AC set to more than 18 degrees Celsius. This is also proven fact. Whole house warming with insulation and or heaters mitigates the prevalence and respiratory infections and lowers antibiotic use within few hours. So, essentially set your temperature of ACs around 24 degrees Celsius. But how exactly does AC work? So, you can see how the AC works here. An air conditioner removes heat from indoor air and releases it outside by using vapor compression cycles. So, there is a vapor compression cycles which involves expansion device, evaporator, compressor and condenser. So, this is the refrigeration cycle. There is a refrigerant cycle. Typical vapor compression cycle of AC uses a liquid called a refrigerant to transport the heat. So, refrigerant through we transport the heat. So, this is how the AC works. Very simple mechanism is there. Just go through that briefly. There is evaporator, there is compressor, there is condenser and there is expansion valve. The temperature range of the AC, this is important area here. The temperature range in which the refrigerant takes up and release heat most efficiently is the range within which the AC is also said to be the most efficient. So, that is why that temperature range is around 20 to 28 degrees Celsius. So the mean is around 24 degrees Celsius. On the other side, on the either side of this range, the energy efficiency drops off. So, try to work your AC in that particular range only. So, what exactly is this India Cooling Action Plan? So, it was launched way back in March 2019. ICAP is a long-term strategy to ensure sustainable and energy efficient cooling across sectors while delivering environmental and socio-economic benefits. So, essentially, what are the key objectives, by the way? Key objectives of this particular India Cooling Action Plan is very, very important. Reduce cooling demand by 20 to 25% by 2037, 38. Very odd sort of year it has chosen. Across residential, commercial, industrial and cold chain sectors. Promote eco-friendly refrigerants, especially low GWP alternatives to curb GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. Enhance energy efficiency of cooling systems, encourage innovative technologies for sustainable and affordable coolings. Major goals and actions, by the way. Target reductions by 2037-38. Cooling demand to be reduced by 25 to 20%. Refrigerant demand reduced by 25 to 30%. Cooling energy use reduced by 25 to 40%. So, this particular data here is very, very vital. So, if you want to write accurate answer in GS3, always use lot of facts, lot of data and you must need accurate data. So, just remember by heart these particular figures here. Research and developments prioritize cooling technologies in that regard is also under that ICAP plan. So, this is the practice question for you, just comment your answer in the comment section. Particularly in the decoded section, we are going to discuss very important article considering India is urbanizing fast and we have so many missions, smart cities missions, we have urban mission at the same time and many times and the urbanization is creating the challenges for transit systems and transit solutions as well. So, we have the ideal transit solutions, but at the same time India's urbanization, the sort of urbanization India is going through is also not planned. So, at the same time calibrating the ideal urbanization transit solutions with the urbanization's growing demand is also very, very vital. So, from that perspective, this particular article here addresses important issues of transit systems, very important from the perspective of GS1 urbanization as well. So, about the news, urbanization is a key set pillar of Viksit Bharat by 2047. So, many times try to have the very positive, very optimistic vision in your answers. You cannot be pessimistic for India's growth or India's ambitions. It is not appreciated at all. So, try to be positive, always end on an optimistic note. That is my genuine suggestion to all of you. When writing answers, conclude with good note, good optimistic note, essay at the same time. Do not be pessimistic about India's growth in particular. Urban India expected to drive the nation's economic transformation by 2060 is over 60% of India's population is projected to shift from low productivity rural areas to more productive urban areas. Urban areas are often considered more productive because there are a lot of job opportunities, there is diversified workforce at the same time. So, essentially by 2060 we will have almost 60% of our population living in urban centers. So, considering this fact, we have to focus on the transit solutions as well. What are the government's recent initiatives for public transport, by the way? There is PM e-bus Seva payment security mechanism, there is PM e-drive scheme, lot of other solutions are there. So, India is focusing on improving its public transformation, public transport systems. At the same time, we have seen lot of metros, we have seen lot of improvements in that regard. At the same time, what are some current challenges in that regard, by the way? Shortfall in urban buses. So, we have the shortfall in urban buses. Why there is shortfall? Oftentimes, Indian roads are often in a dilapidated state, although we have seen the tremendous improvement in the road connectivity at the same time, but many times if there is a road, there is a parking issue. So, many times you must have seen in Delhi itself, the major road is blocked by the parking on both sides. So all these issues are there. At the same time, we have to, look at the problem holistically, and, avoid having the solutions which are unidirectional. Particularly, so shortfall in urban buses is the major issue. Limited access to public transportation. Just 37% of urban residents in India have access to public transport, according to economic survey of 24-25. This particular data is very, very important. As I said, many times in GS1 or GS3 answers, you have to support your arguments with data. So, this particular data here of economic survey is very vital. In contrast, over 50% of urban dwellers in Brazil and China have access to mass transit. So, less than 37% of urban residents have access to public transport. That's what the data of economic survey of 24-25 suggests. Challenges with metro systems. Metro networks are capital intensive and long term investments, mostly funded by central government. You have seen, metro developments, many times routes are non-profitable. So, we have seen in that regard, there is Jaipur metro, there is, Kolkata as well, there is, Mumbai as well. But Delhi to certain extent, is making, doing equal level profit, but at the same time, it is not like it is in profit overall. Most metro systems are yet to recover full cost. As I said, many metro systems are yet to recover full cost. Projected ridership often falls short, making cost recovery difficult unless the route is high density corridors. Users are high sensitive to fare changes. Users are highly sensitive. You must have seen in Mumbai particularly, this issue is very prominent. That's why, people prefer the local systems, the locals in Mumbai. Why? Because these are really cheap. So, when there is, changes in fares, metros are obviously little bit sort of on the expensive side. So, essentially, riders in particular are very sensitive to price changes. Any increase typically causes a drop in ridership. That is but obvious. Last mile connectivity issue is there with metros. Metros use less attractive commute, value comfort, cost and time efficiency. So, but there is an issue of last mile connectivity. Indian government lacks the fiscal space to often offer large scale recurring subsidies for metro level. So, that is issue. Many times it is essentially the central government funds which are often funds these sort of metro systems, and often creating these systems is an expensive task. So, considering the fiscal challenges for India, this becomes an essential challenge. Limited private investment, technology and model neglect, these are some issues. There are cost effective modes like trans and trolley buses which have better life cycle economies as well. So, the current focus is on electric, CNG, hydrogen or biofuel based vehicles. So, we are investing in that regard as well. Ensuring a sustainable and financially viable urban transport future now is very, very vital. Note down some of these points here. Diversify and prioritize cost effective modes like trams and trolley buses. Clean fuels like electric, CNG and hydrogen use, so that road based public transport can be improved and energy efficiency is taken care of. Expand bus rapid transit BRTS systems which are cheaper and flexible at the same time. Improve last mile connectivity. Okay, through build dedicated pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. That is another important area. You must have seen, there are no dedicated pedestrian and cycling. Even if it is developed, there are encroachments. Most of the time you must have observed this particularly in urban centers, particularly in Delhi, that problem is very, very prevalent. Attract private investment. There should be viability gap funding, predictable regulatory frameworks. There should not be, complicated procedures for the investors. Integrate urban transport planning. So these particular systems must collaborate with urban transport planners. So unified metropolitan transport authorities in all major cities for coordinated planning should be there. City mobility plans should be aligned with the transit systems at the same time. Ensure fair affordability, financial sustainability, use technology and data. You can use, AI and data analytics. You can use national common mobility card. For example, this is one of the, foremost thing when it comes to metro systems, NCMC card. Focus on green and inclusive mobility. Set city specific emission reduction targets. You can have emission reduction targets citywide. Make systems accessible and inclusive. Ensure universal design for the elderly, women, children and differently abled people. Pilot innovative solutions like trams in Kochi. This is, note down this particular case study here, trams in Kochi, or low cost innovations in smaller cities rather than one size fits all approach. So as I said, you cannot have one solution for all cities because each city has its own challenges. You have to calibrate those solutions according to the city's needs. So in conclusion, what we can say, as India moves forward becoming a developed nation under a vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047, ensuring affordable, efficient and inclusive mobility is essential not only for economic productivity but also for building livable, equitable cities of tomorrow. For cities of tomorrow, we must have good transit systems, to good transit solutions at the same time, and we have discussed some of those solutions. So note down 4 to 5 of the transit solutions that those solutions you can use in the urbanization and transit related issues when it comes to GS1 and GS3. So this is the practice question for you. So that's it from my side. Stay tuned for another edition of Daily News Analysis. Thank you.